Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon native tank, and today we are going to do a simple before and after water change. Not going to spend a lot of time on the before. You get the idea. It's definitely in need of a little bit of maintenance. The water itself is fine. In fact, if I got in there and simply wiped down the glass, it would already look like I did a huge amount of work to this tank, because that's really all that's wrong with it. Is the front glass is just filthy. It's got all that green cyanobacteria, algae, grunge growing on it. So we're going to get that wiped off. I am going to do a big water change. We'll get a bunch of that tannin stained water out of there. You can see how tea stained it looked. We'll get that nice and cleared up. And of course, I'm going to get out my garden rake, probably, maybe my leaf blower or something, and we'll take care of a little bit of this duckweed off the top. And we'll get it back to more manageable amounts. So, pretty simple, cut and dry, before and after. So there's a good look at your before. And there's your after. So the fish are just now starting to creep their way back out from underneath of all the rocks and different hiding places. The crayfish is still in the back and underneath that large rock to the left. So what we're going to do is go over to my little work area / washing machine, and we're going to look at and talk about some water chemistry for a couple minutes. And then when we get back, we are going to set up the other camera. I'm going to put some food in the tank and let the camera roll, and hopefully we'll be able to get some good footage of the crayfish coming out, and we'll get to see a little more of these minnows swimming around. There's more minnows in there than first meets the eye. So let's go over and do that, and then we'll be back here and have a look at this tank feeding. All right, now the biggest shift we got was in the pH. I checked the total dissolved solids, and the TDS dropped less than 50 points. It started at about 275, and it only dropped down to about 235. Then we checked the nitrate. When I did the after test, which is this one, I almost thought I'd done the test wrong. Eventually I did start to get a little bit of color change, but initially it didn't even look like I was getting color change. So I tested some of the before water, and I could see why I got very little color change. We started out with virtually no nitrates in there at all. That's probably about 5 parts per million. It's definitely less than 10, and so now we are down to only a few parts per million in the nitrate. I tested the general hardness. We started at 3 degrees general hardness. We're now at 2 degrees general hardness, so no big shift there. The pH, however, was a little more significant. We started out around 7.8, possibly 7.6. Again, when you start getting up at the higher end of that low range, that color blue sort of tends to get up to open to interpretation, I'll say. So somewhere around 7.6 to 7.8, and then we dropped it all the way down to somewhere around 6.8 to 6.6. So we dropped it a full point, and we crossed the basic acid barrier. We went from basic conditions and ended up in an acidic condition. So that's a little more stressful for the fish. It's actually the most stressful to go from acid to basic. Going from basic to acid is not as stressful for fish, but a 1 point shift from, say, 8 down to 7 is not as big of a deal as, say, 7.5 to 6.5. It's still a 1 point shift, but you're crossing over from one set of conditions to another. So again, we went from basic to acidic, and I don't think it's really going to make that big of a difference, though. But again, there you have it. That was the most significant shift in the water chemistry during that entire water change. That, and of course, then the reduction of tannins. But let's get back to the tank and we can have a look at that.
All right, now I was unable to get any of the crayfish on video while I was standing in front of the tank, so eventually I just set up the tripod and let the camera roll, and we got the crayfish creeping out from the back and making his way around to the front of the tank. Right now we are watching this on 2 times normal speed. He certainly took his time getting up front, and then once he got there, he just settled into that little spot and munched away on some algae wafers for quite a while. So now we are going at 8 times normal speed, and we're going to cruise through watching some of the fish swim around the tank. In fact, when you watch it at a faster speed like this, you actually get to see a little more of the normal behavior of the fish and the way they move around in a school. It's pretty interesting watching them swim in a group like that, and you definitely get the idea that there's more fish in the tank that you normally see when I'm standing in front of it. So we spent several minutes watching the crayfish just sit there in the front of the tank, not doing much at all. And eventually he gets up and he moves over to the right a little bit. I did wind up cutting a little section of the video out. He moves a stick out of the way. He finds himself a big old piece of algae wafer, and then he scuttles away and gets underneath of his big rock in the back there. Takes the algae wafer with him. So I cut that section out and made it as a little standalone video, but that is more or less where we're going to wrap this video up, and we're going to see that all happen in high speed. In fact, he's getting ready to start going for it right now. So I'm going to say thanks for watching that. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe. You never know what you're going to get with me. Thanks again for watching this one. Don't forget, it is my native tank. I'll see you real soon.